Welcome to the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sulon Carrick and I'm passionate about inspiring, motivating, supporting and informing women over 50 to embrace this exciting time of life. Health and wellness in mind, body and spirit are the foundations for living well, but there is so much more to a life well lived. Each week, through conversations with my guests, I'll be presenting topics that will help us all to live well and enjoy life. So join me as we discover new ways to become women living well after 50. Are you ready to start living? What are you waiting for? Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sulon Carrick and I'm delighted to have you join me. How are your finances looking? Are you financially independent or are you struggling? Are you able to have the quality of life that you want with financial freedom? Or are you trying to make ends meet? It's an important issue, especially as we age and we're living longer. So today, my guest is going to talk to us about financial prosperity. Penelope Jane Smith is the premier financial freedom coach for women entrepreneurs and the go-to expert for some of the biggest names in the conscious business industry. She's an acclaimed international speaker and certified trainer with over 20 years of teaching experience. She's the author of The Little Book of Prosperity and the creator of Prosperity Coin, the world's first cryptocurrency designed to support the financial freedom for women entrepreneurs. Through her signature programs like Financial Freedom 101, she has helped thousands of entrepreneurs from all over the world to create more ease, peace, and freedom around money. Now, we don't all have to be entrepreneurs to benefit from some of the tips that Penelope Jane has for us today. So let's go and join the conversation. Welcome, Penelope, to the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. It's lovely to have you join me, and I'm excited to talk about the topic that we've chosen for today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sue. I love geeking out about money with cool people, and I love what you're about here with this podcast. So thank you so much for having me.
Great. Now, we're going to be talking about money, financial freedom, financial prosperity today, and that's something that we all want. But first of all, I want to take it back a little bit and talk about your story, your background, and how you came to work with women entrepreneurs to help them become financially independent.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a pretty dramatic money story. I don't know if you
good.
know, but
No.
I started off in my mid-20s investing in real estate, and I took $10,000 of my own money. Over the next 4 years, I turned that into over 6 million in real estate. And I was on track to be able to retire by the time I was 31. I actually prefer the term become financially free to retirement. Retirement, we have this idea that it's like 65 years old and you have to like sit around watching TV or go on cruises, or I don't know, just retirement conjures up, odd images. And for me, financial freedom is one of my highest values. And so, financial freedom is not an age, it's a financial number. And it just means you don't have to depend on a job, your business, the government, a spouse, an adult child, or anyone else for money. So I was almost able to do that. And then the real estate market crashed and I lost everything. So I went from being almost financially free to being millions of dollars in debt, having to watch my own home with the beautiful water view to go to foreclosure, having my beautiful credit score ruined. And as you can imagine, that was a very painful and difficult experience. And I felt like a failure. And then right around that time, as I was losing everything, as my house was in foreclosure, I got invited to go to this high-level mastermind on Necker Island. Do you know where that is?
No, I don't. No.
Do you know who Richard Branson is?
Yes, I do. Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So Necker Island is Sir Richard Branson's private island in the Caribbean. And this was a $50,000 mastermind for 6 days, no payment plans, no refunds. And I had, no credit since my credit was totally ruined. I had no income, no savings, but I did have this really strong intuitive hit that I was supposed to be there. And if we have time and you want, I could share with you how I did it. But the important
Mm.
thing is that I made it. And that was a really big turning point for me because the facilitator of the group announced publicly that he wanted to win a Nobel Prize for single-handedly turning the economy around. And I was like that really, really inspired me. And so there I am sitting on this billionaire's private island with the question, what could I do to single-handedly turn the economy around? And I got a download, Sue. Can I share what I came up with?
Yes, yes, sure.
Awesome. So I noticed that people have their own personal economy that may or may not have anything to do with the overall economy. So my personal economy was tanking, but there were other people on Necker Island who were having their best year in business ever. And I thought, you know what? If I could support enough individual people to create their own personal economy of abundance, then eventually we would hit a tipping point and that would shift the economy at large.
Mm.
So right away, I started making microloans to women entrepreneurs in Africa, Asia, South America, because I wanted to have a global impact right off the bat. And then I started training women entrepreneurs specifically because I felt like entrepreneurs create jobs and create opportunities for other people.
Mm.
And, you know, now as a result, I've been able to build my accounts back up, cash flow my dream wedding, buy an even more amazing, gorgeous house with an even more expansive view. It's like she's back. But
Yeah.
the basic thing is that I have lived through some people's worst nightmares financially and lived to tell the tale. So everything that I've learned about managing, keeping, growing money successfully. That's why I'm so passionate about sharing it now, so that people can avoid some of the terrible mistakes I've made. Or if you've faced financial challenges in your life like I have, then how to pick yourself up and, rise like a phoenix from the ashes, so to speak.
Mm. Mm. Yes,
Yeah.
and that's difficult to do, isn't it? I mean, especially when you got to the level that you were, to find it all just, crumbling down around you. It would have been so easy for you just to give up and get caught up in the, oh, why did I do this? And I'm a failure, as you said, and things like that. But you didn't let that stop you. And that takes a certain amount of resilience, doesn't it? You have to sort of accept what's happening, but perhaps say, well, I've got to do something about it. I'm not going to go down to it. And I think that, out of that, you've now got a gift that you can give to other women because you've been there, you've done that, and you've actually lived through it and lived to tell the tale.
Totally. Yeah. And I wouldn't wish that experience on anybody, but it has made me a much better investor, a much better mentor. So I have harvested many lessons from the experience.
I think that, we all want to be financially free, have that freedom. We want a quality of life that, and especially as we get older, we want to be able to continue a good lifestyle and not be worrying into our later years how we're going to live, what we're going to be able to do. So, but I think that many of us don't take the time to really quite understand. I think we're a bit afraid of investing, or we're afraid to do things with our money because we're not really sure what we're doing. So, first of all, is it ever too late to become financially free? Because many of my listeners are probably like at my end of the scale, 50s, 60s and beyond. And we're heading into retirement, or we're into retirement. And is it too late, or what can we do?
Yeah, that's a great question. The thing is, because it's not an age, it's just a financial number, then that means that it's never too late. But that's also why my approach is a little bit different than actually a lot different than other financial experts you might have heard, because most of the women I work with are 50s, 60s, 70s. And so the traditional financial advice of, oh, just dollar cost average into the stock market for 40 years, it doesn't really resonate. So the approach we take is to support you to become financially free in 5 years or less, because like I said, a lot of the people I work with don't want to wait around 40 years, you know?
No. And so how do you do that in 5 years? It seems such a short period of time, really.
Yeah, so there's 3 steps, and then there's like a system that I use to help people through the steps. So step 1 is to create your financial freedom vision, and that's really where you get clear on what is that lifestyle that you want. You know, if you didn't have to depend on, the job or a government or a business or anyone else for money, what would you be doing with your time? Where do you want to live? Where do you want to travel? Who do you want to contribute time, energy, money to? And once you get clear on that vision, then we can start putting numbers to it and look at, okay, how much income do you need to support that? And then that becomes your passive income goal. So passive income is income that comes in whether you're working, sleeping, or playing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
when your passive income is more than your expenses, then you're financially free. You're totally at choice with what you do with your time.
Mm,
Make sense?
mm. Yeah.
So now we have the passive income goal. Step 1, financial freedom vision. Step 2 is to buy assets. And this is the first part of our approach. So you remember the story of the goose that laid the golden eggs?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like creating your own golden goose where you can live off the golden eggs. So this is if you have some money, and you can start with just a little bit. You don't have to, I mean, some people come to me and they already have millions of dollars. Maybe they've saved it up, or they've gotten an inheritance or some kind of insurance or divorce settlement, and they need to know how to manage it. Some people are just starting out, and then everything in between. So the habit of managing your money is more important than the amount.
Mm.
I don't want you to feel like you need to have millions of dollars to start on your golden goose. You can start your golden goose with $1 or euro or yen or whatever currency you're
Yeah.
using. But the approach is, now we're going to buy something. So stock, real estate, cryptocurrency, commodities, bonds, whatever it is. Like, you're taking some money and you're investing it in something that is either going to give you passive income or is going to grow in value, and you can take that off as passive income. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yes. Yes.
So that's the golden goose approach. And then that's step 2. Step 3 then is, if that's not enough to get you where you want to go. And sometimes it is. Like, some of my clients, all we need to do is get their golden goose laying more golden eggs, and boom, 2, 3, 4 months later, they're financially free. That's it. We
Mm.
really just focused on helping them get clear on their investment strategy, because most people don't even know what an investment strategy is, let alone
Mm.
like how to implement it or follow it, right? We're just like, I don't know, I just talked to a financial planner, right? They
Yes.
probably know what they're
Yes.
doing. So yeah, so let's say that step 2 gets you there. You're done. You don't really need step 3. But if you don't have enough golden eggs to hit that financial freedom vision, and you still need some more passive income coming in to be totally financially free, then step 3 is to create assets. And that's where basically we're creating new passive or semi-passive income streams with little or no money down from your creativity, time, energy, social capital, to basically fill in the gap. So that's our approach, and it's pretty cool. And then there's the way we move people through those steps is my wealth accelerator system, which has 4 parts: mindset, education, systems, and strategy, or mess for short, because we're all
Mm-hmm.
we're all hot mess when it comes to money. But in this case, when you embrace your mess and work with your mess, that's your key to creating more wealth and freedom. So it takes some of that sting and like shame off of some of these money stories that we might have carried with us from not getting the financial education we needed when we were young.
Mm. And I think that's a good point. I actually wrote it down because you've mentioned it twice. We do need to be informed. So we need to educate ourselves. And as you said, most of us just say, oh, we'll go to a financial planner. And, how do we know they're the right people to give us the advice anyway? But a lot of us go, we take the advice that's given, but we don't really understand it. And then if it goes pear-shaped, well, we're thinking, oh, what have we done? But I think we don't have to be like do a degree in economics or finances,
Yeah.
but we need to have that basic understanding, don't we? And be educated and informed on what we're going to be doing.
Absolutely. Because if you're listening to this podcast, you probably have some level of formal education, like
Mm,
college, high school, kindergarten, right? And you might even have some level of professional education, like a license or a degree or certification. And unless you got your license as a CPA or a financial planner, chances are you learned little or nothing about personal finance and actually how to like manage and invest money wisely. It's just something that we're not taught. And like the big box financial advisor, Wall Street world, they want to make it sound super complicated. So we've kind of been conditioned that, oh no, this is too complicated for me to understand, or I'm not good at math or anything like that. And it's really simple. I mean, think about all the years you spent in school,
mm,
right? Or all the years you spent getting your license or degree or certification, or, if you're a coach, like the coaching hours, or if you have a job, like how long it took you to learn your job. I have a 3-day event where in just 3 days, I give people the tools and money systems they need to be financially free forever. So you learn how to manage and invest money wisely. So it's not hard. It doesn't take a lot of time, but if you could just take like a little moment out of your life to get those systems in place that are going to serve you well forever for the rest of your life, then I think that's definitely worth considering, right?
mm. And I think that's an important point too, as you say, taking that moment in life where we're so busy. Well, when we're younger, if we have a career, or we have a career and a family and all these other
Yeah.
responsibilities, and we're just trying to meet week to week. If we could just step back for a moment and just take a holistic approach and see what the picture looks like, and just take a moment to reflect or to plan, then that's going to make life a lot easier for us. But we just seem to get into this situation where we're rushing from one thing to another and we just don't take the time. So I think that's an important point, isn't it?
Yeah. And it doesn't take much time to get your money working for you. Because again, we've been so conditioned to work hard for money, work hard for money, work hard for money. And our culture has us like equating our self-worth with how busy we are. Like we live in this like adrenaline lifestyle. It's crazy. And, we have to, at least my experience has been, we have to really go against the grain to say, like, no, I'm not going to live that way. I'm going to do self-care and I'm going to take a breath. And, it's not the norm. In fact, a lot of times, one thing I've heard people say is like, oh, how are you doing? And they say, I'm busy. And the other person says, that's good.
Mm,
Is that good? You know,
mm,
really?
mm,
It's
mm,
it's like we really value being busy, but
mm,
the truth is like your money can just go and work for you. You don't need to put a lot of time into it. You just take a little bit of time up front to kind of understand a few basic things and get it going. Like for example, let's say when you were, 25 years old, you started investing $50 a month and you did that till you were 65. So you did the whole like dollar cost average for 40 years thing. $50 a month times 12 months times 40 years, that's $24,000, right? So it's not like a whole lot of money that came from the make money world. That's your own, blood, sweat, and tears that you use to generate that. But assume you could make an average of 15% on your money. And that's a whole other conversation about how to do that. But if you could, your money would grow to over $1.5 million in that time.
mm, mm,
So you put in 24, but the majority of that 1.5, that was your money. It doesn't need to sleep. It doesn't need to eat. It can just be growing and multiplying and having babies, and its babies are having babies like, you know, 24/7.
mm,
And
mm.
so the majority of that is your money going out and working for you. And so that's really what I want for you.
Mm, mm. I suppose some people feel a little bit nervous about investing, or making that little step to, just in case something goes wrong. But I'm sure that if you have a balanced approach, and conservative in some ways, you can find that financial freedom. But what I wanted to ask you too, I noticed on your website you had a blog post, how to improve your relationship with money. And I think that's important too, because I just wonder how many people actually know what their financial situation is, and where their money goes, and what do you mean by relationship with money?
Well, just like you have a relationship with other people, you have a relationship with money. And so if you want that relationship to be really great, where money is attracted to you and stays with you and works for you and grows for you and takes care of you, how do you make that happen? If
Mm,
you are in a relationship with like a romantic partner, how would you make that relationship amazing? You would spend quality time with that person, you would check in with them, you would make them a priority, right? And
mm,
so the first step in having a wonderful relationship with money is to just decide that money is important to you. That doesn't
mm,
mean it's the most important thing in the world. It doesn't mean it's like now we're going to pray at the altar of money, or like it's more important than your health or more important than your relationships or anything like that. But you can acknowledge that it makes it easier and more convenient to operate in the world and buy the things you need and be like, yeah, this is an important part of my life, you
mm,
know?
mm.
So that's the first step. And then the second thing that I would recommend is, like, if you are dating someone or you're married to someone, have you heard of date night? Having date
Mhm.
night with your
Yeah,
partner or
yes,
spouse?
yes, yes.
Yeah, like a lot of us have heard of that. So just like you have that kind of special time to spend quality time with your partner, I recommend having a money date. That's kind of like date night with your money. I
Mm,
actually recommend that it be in the day, ideally before noon, when your willpower at its highest and you're able to concentrate and think clearly. But taking, I would say, a minimum of once a month for at least 20 minutes to like check in with your money and see how it's doing. I mean, this is when you can do all those things that you want to do or feel like you should do and maybe don't get around to, like, looking at your accounts and looking at your investments. And it's just like sitting down at dinner with somebody. So how was your day? What have you been up to? Where have you been? Right? You're kind of like seeing what's going on with your money. I actually have a whole checklist of what I do on my money date. So if you want a template, you can go to moneydatechecklist.com and grab that template for free. But the bottom line is, you're checking in with your money, you're having this sacred time in your schedule to give your money your full attention. And then what happens is, what you'll find is money naturally just becomes more attracted to you and flows in your life easily. You might find yourself getting unexpected checks. You might find yourself getting, if you have your own business, like somebody just calls and wants to sign up for your thing. So that is probably like my favorite secret hack for having money work better in your life, is to have a money date.
mm. No, that's an excellent idea. And as you said, well, you said just 20 minutes a month, which is nothing
That's the
really.
minimum. That's the
But,
minimum. Yeah.
I would think, once every couple of weeks, I'm sure, or we could do it, because there's also things just for getting investments at the moment, or our money working for us. There's so many things that we perhaps are still paying for that we don't use. We put a subscription in for something, for example, let's say Audible. You want
Yeah.
to get the something like that. Now that might only be $6, or a pay TV subscription might only be, a few dollars. You don't use it and then you forget about it, or you've signed up for a gym membership. You don't use it, and that direct debit is just coming out all the time. You're not checking, and you sort of think, all this money is going out and I'm not actually using the product, and I could be saving that. So I think it's almost like a little once a month audit, or more frequently, to just see where your money's going.
Yeah, you could definitely do that on your money date. And then what would be really cool is, like, let's say you were paying $20 a month for something and you decided you didn't need it anymore. What if you took that $20 and now set up an auto transfer into your
Yeah.
investment account instead? How hot would that be?
Mm, mm. And that's the other thing too. If you're a job and you get a pay rise, why not put some of that aside? You've been living without it for this long, so what's anything extra, or little bonuses, as you say, that come in, instead of just putting it into the melting pot. You could say, well, that's a bonus. I'll just pop that into an investment where it's going to be working for me. So there's little ways like that we can do it. But I also think that we do try to live beyond our means sometimes. We don't want to wait for things, and everyone's got credit, and I think online shopping, that sort of thing, doesn't really help. So what are some tips on trying to rein in that spontaneous spending that we do, or being a bit more careful with our money.
Well, I think what I say might actually shock you here, Sue. I'm not the person that's going to tell you that you have to like rein it in and not spend any money and not be spontaneous and not have any fun. And no, you don't get to drink your lattes. Like, I think that probably a lot of the people listening to this podcast are like, if I want a latte, I'm going to have a latte. So, you know, so here's what I would do. I would encourage you to do a cash flow plan. That means making a plan for the cash that's flowing in. And it's another word for budget, but I feel like it's more accurate and it's also more expansive, whereas budget can feel kind of restrictive. And this is something that we go deep into at my Financial Freedom 101 event. If you want me to walk you through how to do it, you can check out that event. But what I would recommend is in your cash flow plan, you have a category for spontaneity. So what you do is you say,
Yeah.
okay, I'm willing to put aside $100 a month or $500 a month or whatever it is. And this is my spontaneous fun, whatever money account. Because just saying like, no, I can't be spontaneous. Like that doesn't work that way. Because we have these different like parts or sub personalities within ourselves. And there's a part that wants to be very responsible with money and very frugal and invest. And there's another part that just wants to have fun and be spontaneous and play. And you want to nurture all your parts so that everybody's on board, everybody's working as a team. And so when you have the plan, then that makes one part happy. And when part of that plan is having some money that you can just blow and have fun with, that makes the other part happy. And now everybody's on the same team.
And I think that's a good point, because, we want to live life. We don't want to be, just in drudgery all the time. No, I can't do this and I can't do that, because it's a little bit like if you're on a diet and you restrict yourself so much and you say, I'm not having this. As soon as you say that, you want it. So, for me, where food goes, I'm always a little bit in moderation of everything, so you enjoy it. If I want to have a chocolate, I'll have that. But I think that, that's right. If you deprive yourself, you're only going to want to rebel against that and want more. So that's a good balanced approach that you have. Just as an aside, I will be putting all the links to the events, your different information, your website will all be in the blog post and also the pod show notes, so that people will have access to be able to connect with you. Awesome. Now, just before we're going on with time, and it's great, and it's a good topic to talk about, but tell me a little bit about your little book of prosperity.
My little book of prosperity was designed so you could just open it up and get like one little yummy taste of financial education whenever you want. So a lot of people have it like in their bathroom or their living room, and they just open up and they get their like inspiration for the day. So it's basically a lot of the principles that I teach, like the importance of financial education or different types of prosperity. And you can kind of get your little hit of financial education and inspiration for the day.
Oh, that's a great idea. A little bit like a mindfulness or a meditation, or all those little prompts that we have to just remind us. Now, you say that you work with women entrepreneurs, and I think that there's a lot of women at all ages now who are starting their own business, or in fact, I can't think of the percentages, but I know that over the last few years, women over 50 have really had a high percentage of women starting their own business. So you work with entrepreneurs. What's some of your advice to them when they're first starting out?
Well, I think that if you can start right from the beginning of striking a balance between investing in your business and investing outside of your business, that's going to be good for you long term. Because I think a lot of us, when we go onto our entrepreneurial journey, we tend to want to just like reinvest everything back in the business all the time. And I think that ultimately that's a mistake, because you never get that chance to get those passive income streams and golden goose growing for you outside of the business as well. And actually, you started to ask me about investing, Sue. So I want to share something important, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
We talked about how a lot of people just go to a financial advisor. The reason that I focus on supporting women entrepreneurs is because just like in a lot of industries, there is an inherent gender bias in the financial planning industry. This is the case in a lot of places. Like, did you know that the average seatbelt testing is based on the average man, and so more women get injured and die from seatbelts than men do?
No.
It's messed up, and this is across all sorts of industries. So in the financial planning industry specifically, 86% of financial planners are men, most of them over 50. And so those models, the Charles Schwabs and the Merrill Lynch's and the big box financial planning models and products, have a gender bias. And so it doesn't take into account women's longer lifespans, the differences in our career paths and financial goals. And so what ends up happening is that statistically, women end up with less money at retirement, but it has to last us longer. And then as an entrepreneur whose income changes all the time, traditional financial planning advice is super frustrating, because how do you manage cash flow and how do you invest when your income goes up and down? So that's why women and women entrepreneurs specifically is who I mostly work with. But 95% of what I teach applies to, most people. But that said, you think you're going to a financial planner and obviously like they have all the answers and they know what's up, but like more than 80% of professionally managed funds do not beat the overall market. And so we have this idea that if we go to a financial advisor, they're going to be all up in our numbers and like really watching everything. And what actually happens is they ask you a few questions about your age and your self-described risk tolerance, and they just plunk you into one of their preset portfolios that allows them to continue to collect their fees, and they're done. And I have zero problem with financial advisors and zero problem with them charging fees. Like when I talk about finding money leaks in your portfolio, most people are like, oh, you're going to tell me to fire your financial advisor. No, I like zero problem paying the fees as long as they're doing something for you. Right. So what I would encourage you to do, here's a little financial education, is you can go to Yahoo Finance for free and you can type in SPY or IVV. Those are funds that track the S&P 500, which is a stock market index. It's basically like a list of the top 500 stocks in the United States. But even though those are US stocks, some of the income comes in from international, and that index affects you wherever you are on the planet. And you can use it as a benchmark wherever you are on the planet. So you can see what has the S&P 500 been doing, and you can compare what's happening there to whatever your financial advisor is doing. And ideally, you want to see the financial advisor doing at least that, if not beating it. And if they're not, like if the S&P 500 is making 10% and you're only making 8%, then you can have a conversation with them about like, what are we doing?
Yeah. And I think that's it too, just not taking what they say. It comes back to being informed again, and questioning, not be afraid to question. And as women, as you say, there's the gender bias there. And as women, we have to stand up for ourselves and to have the courage to say, well, no, I don't really agree with that, or explain why you're doing that and put them on the spot.
Especially since this is a person that is there to serve you. You are the client, right? And so I see a lot of people I work with get into almost like looking at their financial advisor almost like they're kind of like a parental figure or an authority figure. And they're not. They are your service provider. You are the client. Like if you have a question, you should be able to ask it, right? And I feel like sometimes financial planners forget that, and they'll kind of like talk down to their clients. Like one of my clients went to meet with their advisor. She and her husband went, and every time she asked the financial advisor a question, he addressed the answer to her husband. And she was like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm right here. I deserve to understand what's going on with my money, which is smart, because there's a difference between delegating, like getting support with something you're not really good at, that's smart, and abdicating responsibility, where you're basically just like handing it all over and blindly hoping that it turns out, right?
Yeah. That's a good point. And also women, are finding that we're not all going into relationships these days. We find as we get older, as you said, we women usually live longer than men, so we really need to be taking that responsibility for our personal financial freedom, as well as if you're in a relationship and a couple, you know, you have that, but you also have to be thinking, and I know my husband is like that because he's a little bit older than I am, and he'll say, well, you know, we have to work it so that if something happens to him, I'm not going to be affected financially and lose my quality of lifestyle. So it's important, or vice versa, I suppose. So it's important that, you know, we do think about ourselves, even if we're in a relationship. How would it be if something happened to your partner? Could you still live the lifestyle that you currently enjoy?
Absolutely. And I know a lot of times it's something that we don't want to think about or talk about. Like every time I have what I call our legacy box, which is like the box of stuff for people to look at if something happens to me or Paul. It's got like our wills and trusts and
Yeah.
all of that stuff. But yeah, in our legacy box, you know, sometimes I want to work on it and Paul doesn't. But for me, there's a lot of peace in knowing that, yeah, that our affairs are handled, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, now we're coming to the end of our chat, but is there anything in particular that you want to leave us with, a personal point or something that we haven't covered?
I would say the last thing I really want to leave with you with is you know how you see those quotes on Facebook or Instagram sometimes? I saw one that just totally stopped me in my tracks. It said, "Do something today that your future self will thank you for." And I
Mm,
was like,
mm,
yes, that's what it's all about. Do something
yeah.
today that your future self will thank you for. So I hope that as a result of listening to this interview, maybe you set a money date, maybe you download the checklist, maybe you talk to your partner about money, but I hope that you'll do one thing today that your future self will thank you for.
Well, that's great advice. And look, just before you go, I have one question that I ask all of my guests, and that is, what does being a woman living well mean to you?
Oh, you know, for me, being a woman living well, it means to me living in prosperity, living in a rich life in all areas. So I actually have this dragon tree rituals for living dream book and planner that I plan out like my life goals in. And so you plan out like 3 goals for 1 year, 3 goals for 3 years, 3 goals for 10 years, 3 goals for your lifetime. And so for my lifetime, it's about vibrant health and vitality, financial freedom, and connected and loving relationships. And to
Great.
me, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been delightful to meet you and to hear about how we can find that financial freedom. As I said, I will be putting the links to your blog, your everything into the show notes so people can contact you, and hopefully they can start on their life to financial prosperity. So thanks again for joining me today, Penelope.
Thank you so much, Sue. I really appreciate you having me here.
Thanks for joining me. Bye for now.